This program contains beautiful plants that may be tempting for some viewers to go and buy more plants. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are doing a houseplant tour of my living room slash dining room slash kitchen, pretty much the first level of my condo. And I think the last time I did a houseplant tour of this space was around last summer. So for those of you guys who's been following me for a while, you'll notice a few things have changed since that houseplant tour. One are these Ikea greenhouse cabinets that you guys see behind me. And I also updated a few of my furniture just to make more space for plants because that is literally what the space is for. I'm just kidding. But seriously, I love doing houseplant tour because one, it gives me an idea on how well the plants have changed through the years, especially those I've had for a while. And it also gives you guys an idea on how I have the plants placed around my home. Not only do I need to factor in the type of plant it is, the kind of lighting they prefer, the lighting direction I get, but also how I have them placed and styled in my home, because the reality is I got a lot of plants and I also am conscious of making sure that my place doesn't look too cluttered, especially now that I've added plants for the shop, and that is why you guys know these Ikea greenhouse cabinets. So the house plants that you'll see in this tour will include those in my personal collection, as well as those plants for the shop. And some of you guys are aware that I do have an online plant shop right now, and I do sell locally here in Toronto or the GTA area, but I am also opening up a physical store. Hopefully around August 15th or September 1st is kind of my target date to open that shop. And we'll definitely do a video documenting that journey because obviously you guys have been a big part of my plant life, and I can't wait for you guys to be part of it, especially if you don't live near me where you guys can come by and visit. But if you do end up traveling to Toronto, definitely come by and hang out with me. But with that said, we'll get this houseplant tour started shortly. The only thing I do just want to mention, if you do see a plant that you like or you fall madly in love, I just want to remind you that do your research, make sure that that plant will thrive under your care and under your current environment before you go ahead and spend the money buying that plant, because we all got to practice kind of responsible plant parenthood. So I do just want to say that. So without further ado, we'll get our houseplant tour started. We're going to start here with my string of hearts and then work our way around the room, and we're gonna end up here back at the Ikea greenhouse cabinet. So let's go. All right guys, so first up is my string of hearts, and most of you guys will be familiar with this plant. I've had it for about 3 years now, and you can see how well he's thriving. I actually just gave him a haircut yesterday, so I took a bit of length off. He was touching the ground, but you know what? He needed a haircut because it was starting to get a bit more tangled down there, and you'll see a few of those cuttings later in this video. But below him is my aloe vera. I've also had this one for just over 3 years. You can see how massive he is, and a lot of babies are still potted up with him. And next to him is my ponytail palm. Not doing so well. You know, I do need to maybe consider repotting this guy. But next to him is one of my favorite snake plants. It is the moonshine. And you guys can see why I love the silver long leaves this guy has. Really, really cool. And then next to him is this Ficus elastica ruby, the top cutting that we did when I did my whole Ficus elastica propagation and care video. So this was a top cutting that rooted well in water, and we now planted it in soil. So he's hanging out there just under my media console. Next up are these plants on top of my media unit. So you're gonna see this philodendron Florida goes, growing really slowly for me right now. You know, it went a bit dormant over the winter. Next to that is my Monstera Peru that I actually almost killed last summer. Managed to save it by, you know, cutting it and propagating and getting it to reroot in water. It is now planted in sphagnum moss. I have a few cuttings of the Mandula, and then I have a few more cuttings here of my Scindapsus argarius, some Cebu Blue, some Hoya Gigas, and I think a Hoya Da Nang Vietnam, and then those cuttings of the string of hearts that we took off yesterday, as well as I think a Anodendron cordatum, and this is a Jade Satin Scindapsus. And next to those cuttings is this unidentified Scindapsus. It's a new variety called the Scindapsus Silver Night, and a really cool looking Scindapsus that you guys see here. The patterns are quite unique, and the variegation and the way it shimmers and shines against the light is so cool. And you're gonna see a lot of that when we check out the Ikea greenhouse, because I do have a lot of them for the shop. Now, next to that one is this Ficus triangularis, which I'm surprised it is actually still with me. I got this a couple months ago. I just moved it out of the greenhouse, and this is my second Ficus triangularis because the first one pretty much died on me. And you know, it's quite devastating when plants, you know, I do kill plants, but I kind of hold myself to a higher standard now, obviously with a few years of experience, that, you know, when I do kill a plant, I take it really hard, to be honest, because I'm like, why, you know, why did you die on me? And but this one is still with me. Now, next to that one is a Syndapsis. I think this was supposed to be an exotica, but it doesn't look like an exotica to me. It might be another unidentified Syndapsis because I did get this from one of my suppliers. But if you guys do know what kind of Syndapsis this one is, comment and let me know. So now let's move on to this corner. And first we're gonna check out the plants that's on top of this Ikea Millsbo greenhouse cabinet. One being is this Peperomia frosta you see here. So this is one of the few Peperomias that's in my collection. This, and next to that one is this Peperomia prostrata, also known as the string of turtles. Not doing too well. I'm not really good with Peperomias. I find that historically for me, I struggle with them, you know, especially when I repot them. They just kind of decline pretty quickly. So I do need to do a bit more research of Peperomias. And for those of you guys who have Peperomia experience, you know, comment below and let me know what I can do with this string of turtles to make it look more full. And you guys can see how straggly he is at the top. And then the new leaves that are growing are quite small, you know, not as easy for me like the string of hearts. But behind that is this Hoya Angleriana, one of my favorite Hoyas right now. And you're gonna see here a Syndapsis exotica. And again, you guys can see the difference between this one and the other one I showed you guys that was also labeled an exotica but doesn't look like one. Behind him is this Sansevieria snake plant, the variegated kind. You guys can see it has that yellow streak along its leaf right there. And then next to him is his baby Fiddlea peperomioides that I took from my mother plant. And then I have there my Monstera stanleyana that I just recently cut and propagated a lot of its node and leaf. And over here, I also have this philodendron brandy that you guys see here. I actually have been taking a lot of cuttings from this plant and propagating and growing and then, you know, putting them on the shop. And then you have here my Cebu Blue, which I'm so proud of because this is one of those plants that I got from a trade or a cutting. And in the course of under a year, I got it to look this full. So this is something that's really cool about the Cebu Blue. They are such prolific growers so fast that you can literally take, you know, a single vine cutting and make it into a full potted plant in no time pretty much. And then over there, you're gonna see my purple shamrocks, and this plant is thriving and living its best life right now. Over the winter, it pretty much went dormant. I think I was left with like 2 leaves, but you know, these plants typically go dormant, but you know, they're not dead. Those bulbs in the soil are still alive and healthy, and it's just a matter of giving them the right growing condition, and then they're gonna start growing out like this again. And then this little guy is our Ficus elastica ruby cutting that we just cut off from the mother plant. If you guys saw that video on how to care for your variegated ficus, remember that we cut the top off of that ruby to try and promote kind of the red variegation again, and that top cutting was the one you saw underneath my console. Now in the corner there is my Ficus benjamina. You know, it did lose a lot of leaves over the winter, but it's still doing pretty well. Now let's check out the plants that's inside this Ikea Millsbo cabinet. This is a short version, and a lot of us in the plant community have gotten these cabinets and converted them to greenhouse because they do work really well as a greenhouse. You can control the humidity a lot more. And on top of that, you're able to organize your plants a little bit better, save you some space. And also if you have pets who like to nibble on your plants, this is a great way to not only protect your pets, but also protect your plants. So the plants you're gonna see here are mostly for the shop, and you'll notice that they're mostly philodendrons. You're gonna see here my philodendron verrucosum, one of my favorite velvety philodendrons. I actually do prefer this one over the melanochrysum, but the melanochrysum is still beautiful. I do find it tends to grow a lot faster. Next to that are a whole bunch of mycans, and you guys can see that some of these leaves can get pretty large. I think a few of these mycans, when I imported them, were actually climbing on a moss pole, so you guys can see how big the leaves can get. I do need to pot up a few of these ones that's still in water. Next to that are a couple gloriosum that you guys see here, and then over here is this philodendron melanochrysum, and you guys can see how large the leaf is and how velvety they are. And when you compare it to the mycans, you know, there is obviously a clear difference. The veins on the melanochrysum is a little bit more wider. Also, I find it a lot brighter, but more importantly, the leaf on this one is kind of puffed out versus the mycans, which is a bit more flat. Over here is a philodendron gigas that I took from the mother plant, and you guys can see there's a new leaf showing up. We got a few baby philodendron melanochrysum here. We got another one here. And then back there is a 69686. And then over here, I have this other philodendron gigas cutting that's in a plastic bag. And I love using this plastic bag as a way to kind of trap the humidity a lot more, especially if you're running out of space in your greenhouse and you're trying to get these cuttings to root. So this is a cutting I also took from the mother plant. But yes, so those are the plants that's inside this Millsbo greenhouse cabinet. We're now gonna work our way on the other side of my living room here against this window. You're gonna see a few plants that you guys should be familiar with. So over in this table, you're gonna see this philodendron brandy, and you'll notice that it is on a moss pole now. Next to that one is my Monstera Esqueleto, and this is the one I also cut up because it had a runner, and you guys can see it shot out this new vine, and there is a leaf coming out, so it's not a runner anymore. How you can avoid runners on your vining plants is making sure that you're not underwatering them too much. And I did have a tendency to underwater my Monstera Esqueleto, because I do have a fear of overwatering because it wasn't a cheap plant, to be honest. But yeah, so happy that it's now putting out this new leaf. And then over there is a Monstera Thai Constellation. This was actually a top cutting that I took from the mother plant that you're gonna see shortly. And you guys can see it's putting out a new leaf as well. And then behind that is the Ficus elastica ruby. That was the mother plant, and you guys can see where we took the top cutting off. Moving on to this little shelf, you're gonna see a couple alocasias, my black velvet. Not doing too well. It's not growing as fast or as large of a leaf like my Maharani that you're gonna see later. Next to that one is also my silver dragon. Doing a little bit better than the alocasia black velvet, but also not growing as huge or as fast as the Maharani. Then you're gonna see my Fiddlea peperomioides. Now you're probably looking at it and wondering what happened to it. Why does it look so bald and not as full anymore? It lost a lot of leaves, dropped quite a bit of it, especially during the winter. Partly because it's just overgrown for the pot size it's in. I've been meaning to repot this guy, but hopefully we can do that in the next week or two. But yeah, definitely needs a bit of help right now. Next to that one is my Fiddlea Leaf Fig tree, one of probably the plants I do not like in my collection, but it's still with me because it is a living thing and I still want to care for it as if it's my favorite plant. So, he is still with me. Not obviously growing the way he was before, but he's still there. Next to that one is my Bird of Paradise. Also, one of my bigger plants that probably needs to be repotted. It does have this new leaf. Hasn't unfurled yet. It's been like this for, I would say, even a couple months. So I think a repotting and a good drink will definitely help this guy kind of, start to unfurl and grow a bit more. And then next to that one, you're gonna see the Golden Pothos. And I have this one climbing on a moss pole, and you guys can see how well he's doing. One of my favorite pothos right now. And you guys can see the benefit of a moss pole on a lot of these vining plants. The leaves are a little bit bigger. It is my largest Golden Pothos right now, considering that, I did get this probably around the same time as the Neon Pothos, but because the Neon Pothos is trailing down, the leaves are a little bit smaller than this Golden Pothos. So yeah, so those are the plants that's against this window, and it is a south-facing window, so it does get a lot of light, especially in the summer, but these type of plants can really tolerate a lot of that, bright indirect light. So now let's take a look at the plants on top of my coffee table here. So we got a few. First up is our Thai Constellation Monstera, and this was the mother plant where we took those two cuttings off. One you guys saw earlier, that came from this vine, which has a lot more variegation, and it's putting out a new leaf as well here and down over here. And then this other vine is shot out this new leaf, and I can tell it has splits on it, just the way the leaves are, even though the leaf hasn't fully unfurled yet. But so happy that this is thriving really well. And then next to that one, you're gonna see this new Scindapsus variety. It's called the Silver Hero. And I love this variety, just the way the leaves are, especially when some of the veins are a little bit more prominent. And you guys can see it's kind of like this black or dark lines. Really, really cool looking Scindapsus. And next to that one is my blue oil fern. I got this one around last year, doing surprisingly well for me considering it is a fern. But I do have it outside the greenhouse now, and that's because during the summer, my relative humidity level in my living room, right now I can see my hygrometer says 47%. So not bad, and a lot of the plants really do prefer that type of humidity level. Now next to that one is my Syngonium mojito, and it is putting out this new leaf as well. I am noticing it is slightly variegated, which is great because I was concerned that its previous leaf looked a little bit more green, and this has a tendency to obviously revert back. And then next to that one are a couple of pothos. One is this glacier, really, really cool looking. It maybe look like an enjoy to some of you guys, but this one is considered a glacier. And then next to that one is my Manjula, doing really well. You guys can see how cool this leaf looks like. And then next to that one is a Scindapsus Silver Splash, another favorite Scindapsus. I really like Scindapsus. Honestly, I feel like they're such an underrated plant, to be quite honest. So yeah, so those are the plants that's on top of my coffee table. And the plant that you guys see hanging behind me is actually a Marble Queen Pothos, and you guys can see how the variegation on this particular marble queen is compared to obviously the Manjula that you just saw earlier. So now we're gonna check out the plants on this side of my living room, and you're gonna see first up are a couple snake plants behind here. I forget what this variety is, but next to that one is a Sansevieria whalefin. And this was actually a cutting I took from the mother plant. You're gonna see later on, and you guys can see it's putting out a new leaf. We have here another snake plant variety. I think this one's called the cylindrical one. So it's more of the circular shape. And then this is the Maharani I was referring to, and you guys can see how much more bigger and has more leaves than the silver dragon or the black velvet. And I actually had this just last year, around probably late summer. And the silver dragon I've had for a while, so you know, this tends to grow a little bit better and larger and faster, and I feel like it keeps the leaves a little bit more. I find with the silver dragon or the black velvet, whenever a new leaf shows up, the other one kind of, you know, the oldest leaf kind of goes away, but this one is pretty cool, and I love the texture on this Maharani. It kind of has this, I don't know, kind of like a plasticky feel to it. I am considering repotting it because I think it's gonna help obviously get the leaves to be a little bit more bigger. Alocasias can grow really large. Now we're gonna take a look at the plants inside this Millsbow short version. And most of the plants you're gonna see here are anthuriums. So I have here some anthurium crystallinum, some crystal hope. This is a Magnificum Verde right there, and a couple clarinariums. And again, like all my Ikea greenhouse cabinets, I have a humidifier as well as a fan here to obviously make sure that there's circulation, because you don't just want humidifier running with no fan. The only thing I would probably suggest, or what I learned, is don't get a fan that's like metal, like what I have here, because they're gonna rust, and you guys can see with the humidifier and the humidity, they will rust. So get a plastic one. So over here is kind of my little office station. So this is my desk slash bookshelf. And I got a couple plants there, like a neon pothos and this Sansevieria Samurai, which is a pretty cool looking Sansevieria. And then you got my Zenzi up there. So I got a couple plants on top of my little wine rack here that's surprisingly empty right now. But I got my ZZ plant that I've had probably for over 3 years. One of the first plants I actually got when I started my Crazy Plant Guy collection. And then this is the mother plant of that whalefin I was referring to. So this is where I got a couple of those cuttings. And you guys can see how well this is doing. It pretty much has kind of stopped growing, to be honest. He seems to be the same size for the last 3 years now. And then next to that is the ZZ Raven. And then over here on my little dinette set here is actually one of my favorite Syngoniums, surprisingly, is the Pink Splash. One of the few pink plants I also like, to be honest. I don't like many pink plants, but this one happens to be pretty cool. So those are the plants that's in this area, and you guys will notice it is a bit further back from my window, so it does get more of the low to medium light here, and that is why I kind of have these plants back here, which is the ZZ plants as well as the snake plants. They can tolerate a little bit more of that lower to medium light. You know, the Syngonium, they don't really need a lot of bright light. In fact, they prefer to not have that bright indirect light. They prefer more of the medium light. I find that if they are too bright, you know, it can burn the leaves quite a bit, as well as for some reason, it just doesn't grow as fast as if they were in a medium light. Now, during the winter, I obviously need to kind of move them a little bit closer. So now let's move on to the plants inside the two tall Millsbow greenhouse cabinets, and those plants will mostly consist of plants for the shop. All right guys, so first up are the plants on top of the cabinet, and you're gonna notice all of these Manjulas. When I first imported them, I actually acclimated them in 100% perlite, and then eventually moved them to more of an airy soil mix. And you guys are gonna see that they're doing really well in a 3.5-inch pot. Now inside this cabinet, you're gonna see a few varieties of Scindapsus. This is the Trubii dark form, and you guys can see how beautiful these leaves are, very shiny, and I love that seduction green color. And then next to him is a Trubii Moonlight, another beautiful Scindapsus, very popular right now. And then over here are a few more Scindapsus Silver Splash. So you guys saw this earlier. I do have one in my personal collection, but this is obviously for the shop. And they actually didn't travel well, to be honest. Unlike the Trubii Moonlight or the dark form, all of these kind of came together. And the Silver Splash, as well as the Jade Satin, I found that they didn't travel well. A lot of the leaves were actually yellowing and dropping, so I really had to kind of rehab them. A lot of cuttings to try and reroot them, and this is kind of the result of it. Next to that one are more Scindapsus Silver Heroes, and then over here is the Scindapsus Silver Platinum, which is so cool. I love the way the leaves are a bit more larger and a little bit more elongated than the Silver Hero. It kind of resembles more of the kind of the Trubei dark form in terms of the shape of it. Now on that bottom shelf, you're gonna see here are more Synapses Silver Night. Again, I love this variety of Synapses, the texture, the way the variegated patterns are, and just the way it shimmers against the light. And then next down, you're gonna see this Philodendron Soderoys, and I love this philodendron. At first, I thought the leaves weren't like velvety, you know, it was one of those more variegated type of philodendron, but when you do touch the leaf, it has that smooth, silky, kind of velvety feel to it. So really, really cool. And the leaves can get pretty large, especially when they are climbing on the moss pole, since these types of philodendrons are more of the climbing type. So those are the plants inside this greenhouse. And then on this one, you're gonna see here my philodendron Moonlight. So this one is my personal collection. I've had this for over a year. It did lose a bit of leaves. I actually did cut off a few, but it is vining really well. And then this plant right here, this is the one I bought from Ikea that I couldn't decide which Marble Queen to get. But I'm now convinced that this might not be a Marble Queen, but might be more of a Snow Queen, because the way the variegations are coming in, they're a lot more white than kind of the green on green variegation that a typical Marble Queen you know, will have. So I'm kind of convinced this is not a Marble Queen, but maybe more of a Snow Queen, but nonetheless, very, very beautiful. So over there, you're gonna see another Seraphigeae woodii, or in this case, the string of spades. So very similar to the string of hearts, except the leaf shape on this one is more of a spade shape than that of a heart. Now, inside this greenhouse are mostly gonna be cuttings that I've been propagating and growing for the shop. You know, I do love to obviously import plants, acclimate them and care for it, but I actually really love growing plants myself. There's something about just watching it grow from a cutting and then into a plant, and then, you know, obviously he's putting it on the shop and then having someone buy it, and then, you know, watching that plant grow under their care. So really, really satisfying. But you're gonna see a few cuttings here. Over here, you're gonna see some Anodendrum cordatum, often mislabeled as a Synapses lucens. So be careful when you are looking for a Synapses lucens that it is not an Anodendrum cordatum, but they do have kind of a similar look, except the leaf on this is a bit more thinner. And you're gonna find that it has that nice bluish silver color and silver tone, and the veins are a little bit more prominent than that of a lucin. We got a couple Cebu Blue cuttings here. You guys can see how well they're doing. I got some Hoya Engleriana cuttings, a Siltepecana cutting. These are actually a Aglomina Pictum tricolor, but you know, some I can see that has that kind of army look on it, but for the most part, the leaves doesn't really have it. We got some Melanochrysum cutting there, and some Philodendron gigas cuttings. Then over here, we got some Syngonium mojito cuttings, and then up here, we got some Cissus discolor cuttings that I took from the mother plant because the mother plant kind of went bald, so I took a lot of the cuttings off, and I'm getting them to root in water right now. This one is the mother plant of my Monstera Siltepecana, and you guys can see how well this one is doing. The fact that I took a lot of cuttings from this mother plant and then started to put out these new leaves really makes me happy, so really cool. We got some silver sword there. And then down here, you're gonna see these jade satin Synapses that I was talking about. And you guys can see how well they didn't travel. There's still a lot of yellowing that's going on here. Dropped a lot of leaves. But yeah, so over here, we also got a few more Syngonium mojitos. We have this Philodendron Soderoi. This one I'm actually gonna keep personally for me. Look how beautiful they are. And we got a Syngonium Wenlendii down there. So there you guys have it. That is a tour of all the plants inside the first level of my place right now, and you guys can see that, you know, I possibly can fit a few more plants. You know, I think if I put more shelving above the couch there, I could probably fit a bit more plants there. Comment below and let me know if any of these plants interest you. And again, before you do purchase any of them, make sure you do your research. Other than that, hopefully you guys enjoyed this little plant tour, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.